And let's now speak to the South African Council of Churches on the vaccine rollout. Earlier this year, the Council was speaking out against conspiracy theories doing the rounds then. To discuss, we're joined by the Secretary General of the Council, the SACC, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana. Bishop, thank you for being with us. Firstly, can the church play a key role here when it comes to combating the myths around vaccines?
Oh, most definitely, indeed. I think that all South Africans and their organizations across the board ought to do everything they can to increase the pace of vaccination for as many South Africans as possible. I think we have to accept two things. One, that to prevent the infection, you need to do the non-pharmaceutical measures like distancing, mask, hand hygiene and ventilation. That's the most important thing, but it's not sustainable. You can't have the country, everybody being able to do that in the long term. And the second other measure is to have enough vaccination across the country to reduce the possibility for further infection that is dangerous. And that's what the vaccines are supposed to do. So the country will get back to a measure of normalcy once we have reached a population-wide vaccination extent as much as possible.
Well, isn't rhetoric like this a problem? Yep.
Therefore, the leaders of the member churches of the South African Council of Churches, and these are a very, very wide diversity of churches, from charismatic, Pentecostal, evangelical, to the so-called mainline churches and the African independent churches. All of them have said, we want to have our churches available as venues for vaccination where they are needed.
In December, the Chief Justice, Mogoeng, who is also one of the country's most prominent Christians, Bishop, said the following: if there is a vaccine, he was praying, that is the work of the devil, meant to infuse 666 in the lives of the people, meant to corrupt their DNA, may it be destroyed. Now, many Christians associate 666 with the devil. What do you do when someone of Mogoeng's stature is suggesting that all the world's scientists may be involved in a very evil conspiracy? Well,
let's just say, for one, the prayer is, let those vaccines that are like that be destroyed. I don't believe there's any vaccine like that currently available. But if there was one, I certainly would agree with him, it must be destroyed.
Yeah, but of course, he was encouraging, of course, by even saying that, people who had suspicions think, oh my word, Mogoeng, the Chief Justice has the same possible suspicions.
I wanted to say something else about this 666. And I'm starting off by saying that there's nothing wrong with somebody praying for something. And if that prayer says, if such a vaccine is evil, it must be destroyed. And I'm saying we have our faith in the scientists of the country, that they have verified the vaccines we have, that these vaccines are genuine scientific measures, not something that's been doctored by some kind of supernatural measures. That's one. Secondly, I think this is an important part of it, that the concept of the 666, which is in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, is actually variously interpreted. And definitely, biblical scholars have satisfied themselves that that 666 is a specific reference in a coded language. Now, those of us that struggled under apartheid, we know that you had to use coded language for communicating important things, and so that's why they were doing. These guys were under persecution. So he is talking about a beast, and this beast, he says, it is a 666. Now, scholars have said that the name Emperor Nero Caesar, written in Greek, the letters amount to the number 666, and that's what he was referring to. And he goes on to say in verse 3 that be wise, understand, this is a person I'm talking about. And so he's really saying, hey, I'm referring to this persecution. This was in the days of the persecution of Emperor Domitian.
Okay, but my question...
Whose persecution was similar to that of Nero.
But my question, isn't it problematic for the Chief Justice to even mention things like this? I mean, why bring up Nero in relation to a vaccine in a milieu where people already are suspicious, nervous, and the suggestion is there in that prayer that the vaccine may be evil?
Well, he believes, if he believes, let me just say, I don't know if he does, but if he believes that, then it's his right to say that. All I'm saying is, those who listen to it must know that our scientists have satisfied themselves that our virus vaccine has no supernatural powers. And secondly, that we are satisfied, as biblical scholars have, that the reference to that has nothing to do with what some people believe, and those people who believe that might include the Chief Justice.
Bishop, do you believe that the church leaders themselves need to be educated?
Sorry?
Do you believe that there's a need for education, perhaps even amongst church leaders themselves, about this vaccine, given the conspiracy theories that we've seen?
I can only speak for the leaders of the churches of the South African Council of Churches. Just to get a sense, since March 24 of 2020, every week, the heads of member churches of the SACC have been meeting every Tuesday to reflect in what we call the COVID watch. And they have educated themselves, they've invited scientists, they've done all of that. So I'm quite confident that the churches that I represent are not confused about this. And so, but I can't say that there is the need. Of course, there's a need. Every South African needs that. But I'm saying, if you're saying churches, not all churches are in the SACC, and the other formations have a duty for themselves to decide how they're going to educate themselves.
All right. On a different tack, Bishop, we've moved to lockdown level 1, more opening up of churches, but gatherings inside still limited to 100 people. I know one of the issues was huge churches. Where still only 100 people will be a pittance inside. Is that an issue right now?
It is very much an issue. The member churches of the South African Council of Churches, they've actually only last week, before the president spoke, made two decisions. One was that they should appeal for an increase of the numbers to be based on the size of the venue. So that if you've got a 500-seater, you can have 250 people in the house. If you've got a 1,000-seater, you can have 500 people in the house, if they can do that with COVID compliance. Now, that was their request. And secondly, that because we know it is important to keep the infection rate low, we have learned that the World Health Organization says there must be a positivity rate of less than 5% for a running 2 weeks. We think we should do that as much as possible. Therefore, we've got a task team right now that's looking at all the things that we want our churches to reduce. And for example, birthday parties, things like that. Can we afford to say, look, for the next 3 months, 6 months, we'll postpone celebrations of any nature? That's something that we want to do voluntarily. We have a task team that's working on that. So the point I'm making here is that we are not happy with the reduction and the level at which people are allowed for worship right now. Yeah. It is not good enough, but then, government is government.
All right. So are you still engaging with government?
I'm saying that the decision that I'm referring to was made before we had there. We didn't even know the president was going to talk. And so we are going back to our leaders to say, what do we do now? A number of them have already sent messages to say that we should still write and make the case. But as we're intended to do, we want to make the case together with a pledge of what we are committing to do to reduce the infection rate. Really and truly, churches and religious organizations across the country can be megaphones. What we need is to get all the formations of churches to be on the same page about saying we want to reduce the infection rate. We are going to do these 5 things that make sure that we don't do a super spread, and commit to that and be true to it. If that can be done, I believe government can actually partner with churches and religious organizations across the board.
All right, thank you very much. General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana.